Welcome back to the Bigwater podcast. This week, we've got my longtime friend and sponsor, so you got to be careful when you're talking to your boss, the owner of Silver Streak Lures, aka Wolverine Tackle, Chip Cartwright. We don't pull any punches. We talk about the old stuff, the new stuff. You're going to want to hear this. This has never been told. Welcome back to the Bigwater podcast. I am Captain Ross Robertson, and today we have a longtime friend and industry guru, if you want to call him that, but it's good when you got both those things together. It's Captain Chip Cartwright of Silver Streak Lures, also known as Wolverine Tackle. A lot of guys don't know that. They think of that company as Silver Streak Lures because, honestly, is that kind of the lure that put you guys on the map back in the day, Chip?
Yeah, that is the lure that did us. That's what we call our lures. Silver Streaks is the trademark name. Wolverine Tackle is just the name of the company. So it's kind of a little confusion there, but we go by whatever anybody calls us. We answer to most things, I guess.
I know we've been called a few things back in the day, but let's back this train up a little bit. I met you roughly, I want to say it's about 17 years ago in that range, believe it or not. And at that time, I've been doing the walleye thing. That's kind of my deal. At that time, you guys were, I think we could both agree, more salmon focused. And you were seeing things change with the whole salmon market, and we're looking to diversify. And that's kind of when some of these harnesses and just some other type stuff from that traditional, Silver Streak lure we were just talking about came about. Is that correct?
Yeah. Originally, we started as a salmon company. My father's the one who started the company, and we just made regular Silver Streaks to one size. We started in 1984, a long time ago. But we keep adding every year, plugging away. And yeah, when we had a little hiccup in the salmon industry, I diversified and got into the walleye a lot more. Plus, it's a lot closer to home. So I used to fish Frankfurt all the time. It's a 4-hour drive. Lake Erie's a lot closer drive for me now.
Well, I mean, let's back it up even farther then. I mean, again, I know a lot of the story just because I've spent a lot of time in the boat with you and been around. We've shot a bunch of TV shows together and worked countless sport shows together. We've gotten each other sick at these sport shows. I don't know how many times, if you know what I mean. But the reality is your dad started this deal, and before he even started it, he worked for another lure manufacturer, which I don't know if you want to name or not. But I mean, he was working in design and stuff like that. Tell me. I don't remember the entire story, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he started in fishing in 68 when they had the first runs of salmon and stuff. So, I mean, the first picture of me ever reeling a salmon is in 1970. But he started pretty early on, probably around 1970. He was field testing for Lure Jensen. He did that for a long time. And he worked in the automotive industry, and the big layoffs around 79, he got laid off and actually went to work for Eppinger, Daredevil Lures, and they wanted to create some Great Lakes stuff. They had the casting stuff pretty well, but they didn't have any good trolling spoons. So,
and a lot of people don't realize that the old Daredevil, think of for pike fly-in trips and stuff like that, 5 of Diamonds and Red and White. They're in the Detroit metro area, essentially, right?
Yep.
Or
we're over in Dearborn.
Yep. And Silver Streak Lures is located not far from that now. Kind of in the hub of all the Great Lakes, right in the center, basically.
Yep. So he actually went to work for them and designed the flutter chuck. He was the chuck and flutter chuck. He worked there for a few years until they parted ways, and we started our own company.
And so,
so go ahead.
The Silver Streak lure, not to jump on top of you here, but I'm intrigued by these things as much as anybody, I think, or more. The Silver Streak lure, was that because you guys were silver plating these when other people weren't, or what's the whole back? Isn't there a little story on that too?
Yeah, we were playing with that a little bit when he was at Eppinger's, but we went wholeheartedly into that when we designed the Silver Streaks. And you got to remember at that time, back in the 80s, in the Great Lakes, I mean, Lake Michigan, you couldn't see 5 feet down. We were salmon fishing, so we're running down. Your cannonball, you'd lose it 5 or 6 feet down. That's all you could see. So the silver plating attracts light a lot better and get them reflects it a lot better. So anything you could do to try to make that spoon with more flash or attract more fish, because the visibility was so poor in those days. Where that's why taxes have changed a lot, because our lakes are so much cleaner than they were
Yeah, I mean,
30 years ago.
Cuyahoga River caught on fire. What was it, 69 or somewhere in that range? So yeah,
oh, yeah.
Things have evolved a lot. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but there's a lot of walleye lures now that I know you don't sell really well in silver plated, but you've made me a bunch of custom painted ones in the last couple of years that are just straight fire for me. And a lot of people just don't seem to even have silver plated available. I don't know why, but I guess if people don't really want to buy it, they aren't going to make it.
Well, that's a lot of it too. Is times are different now with the internet. Everything's, you can get your information a lot faster, a lot quicker. Well, some guys talk about old proverbial stuff. It's coppers for Lake Erie. You got to run coppers. So that makes silvers or golds a tougher sell. I mean, we're doing a lot more now with the antifreeze and new people getting involved, and they're willing to try a bunch of different stuff, but silver's still a tough sell. I know you just whack the fish out of it on it. It's all personal preference. That's why, I mean, we have so many darn colors. Everybody has a different opinion, and what works for everybody is a little bit different.
Fishermen are stubborn. I have a lot of guys, my guide clients in particular, that own their own boats that fish with me, and I don't even know what we want to call that lure. I think you're probably going to come out with this year that custom one that I had you do for me, and I mean, it was just insane. I mean, probably 1,000 fish on that pattern on the Silver Streak Mini in particular. Some on the juniors, but mainly on the Mini this year. And I had people that own their own boats, like I said, that fish with me. They're like, what are we doing with that silver? And I'm like, we just caught like 30, 40 fish today on that thing. Are you really questioning me? You're looking at I run copper. And I'm like, can you really be that thick-headed that you watch this thing outfish everything today? And you're going to tell me, well, that's not what you do? I tell you, fishermen sometimes just blow my mind. You're seeing is believing, and sometimes not even that with guys.
Oh, that's fishermen. I got some guys that are so picky. I have two guys that do all of our painting, and one guy can pick a difference out between the two painters on some of our patterns, like the pink panties and stuff, because it has, they're all hand airbrushed. One has a little more purple than the others, and he likes one better than the other.
Well, and that guy,
I won't mention any names on that one.
Yeah,
but,
and just so everybody knows at home there, he's talking about me because I'm kind of I'm kind of a paint snob with these things, and I won't say which painter that I tend to like better, but I can tell which one is which. But that's probably getting a little picky, huh?
No, because fishing's a confidence deal. You got to have confidence in what you're using, and that's going to work better for you. You might run it a little longer and better times, so it's going to produce better for you. Like everybody says, oh, give me the one that's going to catch fish. I'm like, well, tell me the one that you're going to put and run in the water, because they ain't going to catch fish unless you're willing to run it, during all the times to figure out when it's going to work.
Let's back up even again here, because here's the stuff that people I think are entrenched with, and family business things are just flat out tough. I got buddies that have family businesses that are in things that I would consider a lot more lucrative than fishing, right? Fishing's a hobby and it's not necessary. I got buddies that have businesses that, the family fighting and the things and the ups and the downs. Being in a family fishing business, a majority of your adult life, is that fair to say? That's got to be just tough. You were as a kid, you were hooking and ringing and things like that, right?
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, I started. I think it's starting my 20th year running the company for my ma since my dad passed away. He was sick with cancer for a few years beforehand. But I started doing fishing shows with him when I was 12 years old. I was telling somebody this. I made a little board and I used to tie spring wigglers, sell them for $1 when I was 12 years old. Get $3 or $4 and go buy some more material and tie some more flies.
Take that, millennials.
That's where I started, and that was one of my 42 years ago. I've been doing it.
So
just a couple years under my belt.
Yeah, I guess, for you, again, I'll let you tell the story, but because of your dad's situation and being the family business, compared to some other people, I don't want to say it was by any means, because it's definitely not easier the way that you kind of came into it. But, to some people, if you had a quote unquote regular job, you worked at a machine shop or whatever, to make that jump, to go, it's a difficult thing. And, the money and obviously trying to get enough business and that. Was it, easier for you? Like, was there no question that, hey, this is what I want to do? I want to take over Silver Streak? Or was that kind of a big, contemplation, sit down at the family table?
It was a big decision. I actually was an automotive designer. And I had left that company that at the time my wife and I were thinking about having kids, and basically she has a good job too, but we wanted somebody to raise the kids, one of us, instead of putting them in daycare every day. The lure company afforded me, I could go to work and bring my kids to work every day, and I get them on the bus, get them off the bus. It means working late at night sometimes and odd hours, so I can go do stuff for my kids. But that was a choice that I made, so I could be around my kids and raise them.
I think the guys that are, and I'm going to start picking on them early, these guys that are doing this shit in the garages that think it's glamorous. I don't know how many times I've talked to you and on speakerphone when you're pouring blade baits because you got an order that has to go out and something happened, or you're tying harnesses yourself. I mean, people just don't understand. If you like fishing, don't get into the fishing business. If you love it, maybe. If you're like Al Lindner crazy, you might have a chance, because the hours you put in, I mean, this is a labor of love, is it not?
Oh yeah, it's your dollar per hour is not very well for what you're working for making lures, but if it's something you really like, and 99.9% of the people you meet are really great. There's a few bad eggs and everything, but
that number might be a hair high for me, but I'm listening.
Yeah. Well, we're not talking about you now.
Fair enough.
But overall, it's been a great experience, and you meet a lot of great people, and I've got to do a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't have done if I had a regular job where I had to work every day and go to a building, and so everybody makes their choices. I knew it was going to be a little more work, and
it's like I said, it's a tough deal because this is not a lucrative deal. It's just people have a misconception, I think, of this. I was at a show not that long ago with you, and I go over there, your sister's there, your mom's helping there, mom's making sloppy Joe, or you know what I mean, for the guys working. You've got some of the other captains there, the pro staff with you, and it's a family affair deal. And when you're around the family that much, sometimes it gets a little tense. I mean, a little bit of tension going on. I mean, it's just reality.
Oh yeah, my mom laughs. My sister works at the company, and she's got to have her desk face the other way, otherwise we still fight at 50-some years old.
Yeah, I've got a funny.
Keep the kids separated.
I've got a funny story. If you remember with your mom, which I mean, she's the last one I want to throw under the bus, so it's not a throw under the bus. But do you remember? Let's just say you ask. I mean, I don't know how many colors we try, and we'll get into this later, so I don't want to go there quite yet. But the reality is people don't understand how much goes into this stuff, and so you ask me every year for a list of colors. Names, because you probably come out with more colors than an average company, I would have to imagine.
I mean, we're kind of known for the colors, and that,
and we
develop a lot of that stuff and keep playing because the conditions keep changing.
Right. So again, throwing myself under the bus here, I send an Excel sheet to you, generally speaking, sometimes an email. And most of my names, because I like to try to be a little catchy. Well, apparently they're not mom catchy, because about 9 out of 10 mom says no dice too. I mean, is this factual?
Oh yeah. Well, I tell everybody, you got to be willing to call up and talk to my mom and ask for that color.
And that's where I'm going.
Now I know you will, but most people are a little shy and won't do that when they talk to my mom or my sister.
She's given me a few looks that she says she wanted to kind of just have a down to earth talk with me at a couple of the sports shows through the years. She just I need to preach this boy up a little bit, but
well. A quick funny story is she got a phone call from an older gentleman from Wisconsin, and he was looking for pink panties and a salmon spoon, but he didn't want to say it to my ma. Some pink thing, and it's I don't know how to explain it, but you're looking for pink panties. Yeah.
Well,
he was too embarrassed to say it to my mom.
And that's exactly where I'm going with this one, because this is, like I said, mom's going to blush a little bit, or she's going to get mad at me, but I think it's pretty funny. I mean, the color that I worked on with you guys called, I think it's called Doughboy now. Originally it was short skirt. And if you remember, I put that on a blog post or a TV show or something, and people were calling and asking for short skirt, and everyone's like, what do you mean? Because that did not pass mom's approval, and we won't get exactly into why that was, the graphic nature of it, but the gist of it is it was just kind of funny. We were joking, and now these two guys are confused on the color pattern, but that's where I'm going with the pink panty. So if you remember when CJ, I think he was pretty, kind of one of the main guys with that. Am I wrong on the development of pink panties?
Yeah. Yep.
And so when that's getting going, and I can remember mom hearing about pink panties and saying, yeah, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. And I remember you kind of, us all standing there going, like, everyone's kind of looking at each other, and you were like, well, mom, we've been using this.
It's too late.
We've been using this because that was a color. This is how good pink panties is. I mean, I'm still using it to this day. I don't know when that came out. Do you have any idea how long that's been out? 6, 7 years.
It was named after CJ's son. It's got to be 10 years ago, 12 years ago,
God.
at least.
Oh God, I'm really dating myself now. So,
because actually we were down in Huron, Ohio when
that's
the
right.
first time we caught a fish on it. And
that's exactly right. And you painted me some spinner blades. This is how that went. I was still pulling some meat, and you guys were using some juniors.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went down and I remember looking at Ron's boat and with you and CJ, and I'm like, well, I'm no ding dong. You guys got 14 rods in the rocket launchers, and half of them got this color on that we're now calling pink panties. And I said, you need to paint me some of these up in a spinner blade. And I started using that on a harness when you guys were still pulling spoons. And I'm like, dude, and that's the lore of that bait. Where we normally we would just be testing, but you started selling them because all the captains wanted them. Everybody, I mean, normally this is something, these baits wouldn't have even been released until the sports show season, but everybody knew about it. So when mom heard about pink panties and she was having a fit, well, God, I think I'd already shot a TV show with you on this, and we're calling it out. And mom says, this is going to have to change. And you said, Mom, we've sold X number of these already. She's like, pink panties it is. And I was like, even mom has a damn price. This is ridiculous. I was like, I thought you had scruples just because we sold this many in 3 months. Really, Grandma? Come on now.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, but yeah, that bait still catches them. That's just one of those. It's like a chrome blue or something in a crankbait nowadays.
Oh, and we have so many versions of it, antifreeze and pink antifreeze, and I mean, just a zillion different variations of that, and that pattern just seems to work. You run some different colors through it, but it's sure been a steady, consistent producer.
And
that's for sure.
I get to fish for a living, and it's a pretty good gig. You know what I mean? I don't think most people want to go through and do what I do. Probably a pay cut and working a lot less or a lot more hours. But the reality is, one of the things that I do with you is we do a lot of testing. I get a lot of water time. You're out there quite a bit. People don't realize you run a charter boat kind of on the side, if you will, in between all the chaos of running the day-to-day business. And, when we're down there testing this stuff out, I wouldn't say primarily in the fall, because I think we do a lot in the summertime too, depending on what it is. But the worst part of my deal, honestly, with you is I'm running maybe 15, 20, sometimes 30 colors that we're doing one-offs. Me and you we've done at the old bar, eating a burger and having a beer, and we're writing on a napkin. And that goes off to one of the prototype painters. And, we're putting these, and I've got a million lures, and I'm taking cell phone pictures nowadays, used to take camera pictures, because we've got 1 or 2 of these things in case we lose it or if it gets chewed up. But what people don't understand is the reality is, out of those, let's say 30 lures, there's maybe 5 that make the cut. And that's probably a high number, is it not?
Yeah. It's what we used to try to do when we used the shows to promote the new colors. We used to put out 30 colors, and we'd keep maybe 10 of those, but we'd probably paint 100 at least different variations of those, trying to come up with stuff that we like.
Exactly.
And then a few that worked. And it's kind of what in the past we didn't do so much testing beforehand as we do now. We use the shows to see what people liked for the new colors, and then you'd fish them and you'd see what they're coming back and buying again. Then we know which ones would work.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we did a shoot with Scott Stecker from Reef Runner Lures, and I told him, I said, I doubt he remembers, but back 20 some years ago, he told me a good lure has to do 2 things, and in very particular order. Number 1, it has to catch the fisherman's eye. Number 2, it has to catch fish, and in that order, because the best lure that sits on a shelf doesn't go. And I always tell you that too. I half the time with some of these lures that are good, I have no idea. Like, I look at it and go, really? And some of the stuff that I think is just great doesn't seem to catch jack shit. I don't, but again, back to that thing, I've got a special little box, and we try to kind of keep these things quiet, because they're nowadays with the internet and everything going, people painting in garages and stuff, people are trying to jock the stuff before you even get going. So I've got a little special box, that I use for the prototype stuff, because it's not like corporate espionage, but this is undercover stuff, right? And it's just amazing. People see some of those things, my longtime clients or friends, and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. I'm like, no, it's not. The reality is 2/3 of those are going to suck. It's just, that's just the nature of it. And I'm putting lures in the water that probably aren't the money baits like some of my other favorite Silver Streak colors that I've been using for years that that are known to be like Silver Streak, down to earth, that your core group.
Just consistent producers. Yeah, and it's kind of crazy too. And everyone asks me when I do get to fish, is everyone thinks I make lures for a living. That's great. You fish all the time. I'm like, I'm stuck in the shop, so all you guys can go out and have fun. But that's why I charter. At least I get to go fishing once in a while. I got a trip. I got to go fishing. Keeps me a little in touch and lets me play with some of the new colors. But everybody asks me, well, what are you using? I'm like, doesn't matter. You don't have any. What do you mean? I'm running all prototype stuff because.
And they think that's cool. They want in on it. And you're like, no, you really don't. This is not the fun. This is not the glamorous part of this gig. I promise you that.
No, because it's pretty hard. How are you going to take off a lure that's catching fish, especially if you have, for you guys, you're running charters, your first priority is your customers. You got to catch your fish. Well, I do too, but I got, I run a big boat, so I got more rods I can play with than you do in your boat. I usually run a lot more rods, so I can fiddle around with a couple rods where it's a little harder for you guys in the small boats.
Well, yeah, and the reality is right now we're fortunate there's something like 150 million fish on Lake Erie. So the reality is it's getting easier because there's certain days out there if you can't catch them, it could be the circumstances or the water clarity or the conditions you got. But if you aren't catching them on something, it's probably needs to come off the rod and reel, right?
Yeah, that's the hard thing now with color selection too. Is there is so many fish and fishing is so good that most things are catching fish. How do you know if one's a really good thing? If you're doing new colors, is that good compared to what's out there? I mean, that's why a lot of times I'll take off a color that's really hot, put a new color on there, same level, same lead lengths, everything, just trying to compare it. Where a lot of guys can't do that.
And I hate
trying to compare and see what's going on.
I hate to go there with the color thing, but when I think of Silver Streak lures, like Reef Runner's got a lot of colors. You've got to have like the most colors of anybody, especially you even do stuff that's custom for like, Fish USA, for example. They got some exclusive colors. These things turn over. You've got some little small bait shops that want something exclusive or because it's maybe for that region, right? But yeah, the color thing is it's just funny because me and you, we talk on the phone while we're fishing. And how many times have I called you or vice versa? And I'm like, hey, God, I'm terrible with the names. Half the time I got to text you, in all honesty, a picture because I can't remember what the names of them are. But, purple dew jig or whatever, and you put that on, and you're like, oh my God, my high diver's on fire now, thanks. Or you call me and say, hey, I can remember this early, I guess it was early fall. Me and Ron and you were talking and on the boards, I can't remember what it was, maybe NASCAR or something was going. And, again, that's kind of a unique color, right?
Oh yeah,
and boom, just immediately start catching them. But so many times that there's other factors that go into that. I hate to be a color guy, but God, it sure does matter at times. Just like that silver thing you painted for me, it was just amazing. It looked like a saber-toothed tiger went after that thing by the end of the year.
It was pretty chewed up. It does. Some days color doesn't matter. Some days it matters a lot. It's just part of fishing. It's never the same out there. It changes from hour to hour. I mean, how many times you've seen it when fishing's just you're whacking away, all of a sudden gets clouded over, things change, colors change, depths change a little bit, just with the light that's out there. If it's cloudy or bright, and things change up. So you got to be willing to shift around as your day goes on the water.
Absolutely. And speaking of change, here's the reality. Just with my time, when I've been with Silver Streak for, like I said, I'm roughly, 16, 17 years, whatever. I don't even know the exact number. But the reality is you started to become a little more walleye focused. I helped you with the harness thing. We worked on that a little bit, the blade baits, some stuff that's come about. And not that you're getting away from the salmon stuff, but now all of a sudden it's kind of, even since I've been with you, we're going back full circle because of the way that the bite is spoons are really starting to do a comeback, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the spoons will do really well with the amount of fish we have. It's just an easy way to fish and a lot faster way. It's good for us charter boys, so for the big boats that are running 5 and 6 guys on a trip, and you got to catch a lot of fish in a short amount of time. You can just run rods a lot faster with the spoons. If you're running harnesses, it's a long, slow process, especially if you got to put a new worm on every time you get a bite to get that presentation real nice. So running spoons, I can just catch fish a lot faster.
Yeah, you don't have to check just everything. Yeah, it's a more efficient deal if it works just as good or better. I mean, that's
Yep.
just a
Now you can
reality.
catch them on plugs too, but now you got 3 hooks that you gotta get out of the net. Where in spoon you only got one, so I can take 3 fish out of a net. By the time you take one out with a plug, it's
Right.
just a time thing. They're all gonna work. It's what you're comfortable with and how you presenting it and trolling it and making sure you get it down to the levels where the fish are at, how your boat works, what you're good at. Everyone's good at something. You got to figure that out. And
And I don't want to get specific on tactics and things because we've got guys right now going to listen to this from South Dakota, from Maine, all over the place, and they're not exclusive to like the Great Lakes or even right. But
mhm.
I don't know if it's a trend, if you've seen this with your other accounts across the country, but like the Silver Streak Mini, which actually it's a mini because it's in reference to the bigger salmon spoons. It's actually bigger than the Junior. So giving everybody at home here a little bit of idea, the Junior is the smallest spoon that Silver Streak currently has, right?
Yep.
So
Juniors, then minis,
right. So
silver streaks, and then max.
So minis are actually a little bit bigger. It's kind of in between. Now, back when I first started kind of doing this deal, if you weren't using a Silver Streak mini, junior size, your catch ratio, you were leaving about 80% of the fish on the table. If you used a bigger spoon, you just didn't catch nearly as many. Now, we're going to blame that on the size of the fish. I don't even think you can because we had so many big fish back then. But I don't know, maybe it was the size of the forage, with emerald shiners. But I don't know if you saw that same thing. But if you had a mini down, now I know you've changed the mini since then too, as far as the bend. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But the smaller the size, regardless, even if we're talking about other manufacturers here, the small spoons just flat out caught them better. Am I right on that?
Oh yeah. 10 years ago, crap, you didn't hardly. You might run a mini on your diver or something, but even you still outproduce with the Junior than any of the minis.
And we're going back. We're going to go back to the late '90s. Way before I knew you, or not even late '90s, mid '90s, before I knew you. I had some Silver Streak minis, and I didn't catch shit on them, to be honest with you. But it wasn't designed for walleyes; it was a different deal. And since then, you've made a change on that, haven't you?
Yeah, when my dad originally designed that, and we were just salmon fishing at the time. So it's a lot faster presentation. Salmon fishing, we rarely go under 2 miles an hour. Your average is 2.3 even in cold water, or faster. We're walleye fishing, it's a lot slower presentation. A lot of times we're 2 or, we can go down to 1.7 in the cold water and still get good action on the spoons.
So, the reality is as I've gone to you and I've used those, what I'm going to call the standard size Silver Streak, which is actually the salmon spoon. Because 2-3 years ago when we had those 80 million fish or whatever it was, and we had a ton of fish in that 6 to 9, 10 inch range, and they seem to love spoons, don't they? And it was just, you couldn't keep them off of the Juniors or the minis, so I was using even bigger stuff. And now the reality is my go-to spoon is a mini, plain and simple, which again, for everybody at home, that's actually the larger size. That outfishes, for me, the Junior most days by far.
Yep, the last few years even last year I switched over to running all minis, and it's a 3-inch spoon over the 2 3/8 Junior. They just seem to be liking that right now, the little bigger spoon. You say 10 years ago it was all Juniors. You catch a few on minis, but odds were you're really gonna get outfished if you run the bigger spoons. Now that's what they're wanting.
Before everybody leaves their box of small spoons in the boat, I will tell you there's been several days I can think of, like in the late summer, early fall, when we're fishing divers. And I was kind of struggling. Like I was using some stick baits early, trying to catch some really big fish on my divers. And then that kind of dies off a little bit as the sun comes up. All of a sudden I'm on the minis, that kind of dies off. And then I make the move to the Junior, which is again the smallest size, and it bailed my ass out, plain and simple. I know you do the same thing on the big boats. I can't explain why that is, but don't leave them at home. If you think you're going to go out there with one size spoon, you are a ding dong.
Yeah, no, and I think, and we've talked before, even when you're pulling harnesses, when the bite gets tougher, you downsize everything. Quick little theory of mine is just them fish have fed all night or something, and they're not as hungry, so they're not going to take a big meal. But if a little thing comes by, doesn't swim as fast, a lot easier meal. It's a poor little dude stuck on the outside of the pack of minnows. He's the first one going down. It's a quick, easy meal. I've done that salmon fishing for years. I've run junior salmon fishing, especially after 10 in the morning when the bite gets real tough. Man, they gobble the little stuff because they swim and they eat.
Right.
Not that they mean a meal, but they're going to take it if it's easy for them.
And
Kind of.
and you know this, but I just came off a pile of speaking engagements, private clubs, and all kinds of different stuff. And those things are kind of a good checker or gauge for me. And I always just laugh because, again, I every single speaking engagement that I have, people come up to me and say, "Hey, what color, harness or spoon should I get with Silver Streak?" I mean, literally every single time after I get done giving a whole presentation about what really matters and color doesn't matter, right? And in all seriousness, the size of the spoon matters day in and day out more than the color. If you have the right color and the wrong size, you're still going to get your butt kicked most times. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think so. It's it's definitely changed. Even in salmon fishing, we're running a lot smaller spoons than we used to run. There's some guys that are still running a lot of mags, but a lot of the top salmon guys, they're running minis and regular streaks where they used to only run mags. I mean, everything. Why the Great Lakes are changing, I don't know what's going on. It's a cycle. Maybe it's because if that's what everybody talks about, that's what everybody's running. So there's more in the water, so that catches more fish. They're seeing that more. I don't know. Well, it's a strange deal.
And the one thing you've taught me a lot about is just the stuff, and I know we won't get into this because it's kind of trade secret stuff, but you've taught me a lot about how you design the spoons. And it's just amazing to me at what just tiny incremental differences make a difference, because I know I catch a ton of fish on the minis and the juniors, and it's just, there's a lot of spoons out there in the market nowadays, right? There's a lot of knockoffs. There's a lot of just private labeled stuff. And I firmly have a lot of confidence in your stuff and running them in the water, aside from the paint jobs, because some of them are pretty simple that I use. They don't look pretty. I mean, this custom one that me and you have been working on is not one that you're going to grab off the shelf and say, that just looks like the prettiest one going, right? I mean, it's bare bones simple, but it flat out works.
Yep.
And the one thing that I've learned with you on the development of the spoons and things is not actually the spoon itself, but I've worked these into my speaking deals and seminars and such, is the terminal tackle. And tell us about, how important it is, because most guys are not rigging their leaders and their terminal properly.
Well, the way you got to think about it is if you're running like a junior, very small surface area, going through the water, it's creating force. As it moves through the water, the water's going across there, it's creating a force. The more weight you put on that spoon, the faster you have to go to force it to swim. So a lot of guys will take I'm bending up all my hooks, so they put this great big freaking hook on there. Well, now you've effectively narrowed the speed range of that spoon because you put a great big weight on the tail end of it. Now you slowed the action down. It doesn't move as far when it's swimming from side to side or as fast. You've slowed it down. So you've really lost the whole bottom end of the speed range on that spoon. And the same with their swivel. Guys will, there's some riders I fished with some guys, and it's like, holy crap, you guys, you guys know how to fish, and you got a great big ass salmon swivel on this little ass walleye spoon. I said, you're just killing it. I run just a wire snap on mine. I put the ball bearing swivel at the end of my 5-6 foot leader. As long as I have one ball bearing in the system, that's all you need.
Right.
So I take that weight off that spoon, and now what you're doing is freeing that spoon up. It can swim a lot farther from side to side and a lot faster action. So now it's maybe a little bit different than people are seeing, or, if they want it slow or fast, you have a lot of variables that you can play with and not hurt that spoon.
So generally speaking, as far as the leaders themselves, tell me the materials, the length, and how that affects things and how that's going to affect your performance.
We like as long as leaders you can. I tell people to run as long as you can and still be able to net the fish, depending on what boat you're in and how far you can back up. I run a 6 foot leader, and I'll get it down to 4 foot. I'm kind of anal. I retie a lot, especially with the walleyes. They're pretty toothy and they can chew it up pretty good right around the spoon. Once it gets under 4 feet, I'm probably going to change it. It's getting a little short for me. You get a real short leader, it really does some funky things to the spoons. So I like that, at least 4 to 6 foot leader. I think you need to make the spoon run right. And I just run a 20-pound fluorocarbon. You can go lighter. You just got to be a lot more diligent and checking your line for nicks and stuff, because now you're going to lose them. It depends on who you're fishing with. A lot of times, I'm chartering, so I got guys that don't know much, and I turn my back for a minute, and they got the thing reeled up to the back of the boat, and they got it hanging out of the water, picking it up. I'm like, oh, whoa.
I've seen a few
Give me
fish.
a chance to net it,
Yeah, I've seen a few fish in the first guide of the rod. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So they get excited and they don't stop reeling. They just,
well,
so I run a little heavier leader, but that, that'll slow the spoons down a little bit. A lot of guys go to the 12-pound, and that'll work. You just got to be a little more gingerly on your reeling.
And again, I'm not a spoon guru like you, but I like a little heavier. Again, just the time. If I don't think I'm losing bites, but I'll use a leader material, something I can kind of walk the dog with. And the thing that I found is on the slow side of the turn, I think I still get more action out of that because it's more direct connected, if that makes sense. So I actually don't like the real loosey-goosey leaders that you maybe would if you were live bait rigging or something, but I like that more of that stiff, actual like saltwater leader material. Do you do the same thing?
I haven't played much with the leader material the last 7-8 years. I've been pretty much on fluorocarbon 20-pound, just so I don't have to retie as much. Like I say, it hasn't hurt my fishing that much. There's never really any days where I feel like it's really hindering me a lot. It might cost me a couple fish, or if I had some lighter line, some buddies that are running some lighter line are getting a few more bites than me, but I can usually overcome that and just,
right.
Make sure you're on a good angle and got everything else working right. And
so
run a few more rods and you'll get your bites.
The thing that I want to rehash here is small terminal tackle is basically within reason as small as you need, especially if you're planning on using the smaller lures or slower speeds, because every time I do one of these speaking gigs, somebody comes up and they've got, like you said, they've got this ball bearing swivel that looks like they're going halibut fishing, and they go, no, this is what I do, and I catch fish. And I'm thinking, man, you could literally catch so many more just by changing this out. I mean, and I don't know why guys fight that. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at it like this. They're running a snap swivel that's 100 or 120 pound rated. I'm like, you're running 15 or 20 pound line. What do you need a 100-pound freaking swivel for?
That's right. And that goes to also the quality, 120 pound rated of what? If you use junk terminal tackle, you don't even have to have expensive terminal tackle. I mean, this isn't 20 years ago when you had to have good quality sample and all that. There's a lot of good terminal tackle, like VMC or Spro is generally what I use. They're not really that expensive. They last forever. And they're, generally speaking, corrosion resistant. You don't have to spend a ton of money to get a good quality, small, more than doable.
I usually make my own. I mean, I buy the ball bearing part, and I like the welded rings. I just buy the plain ball bearings with 2 welded rings. I cut the one off, and I put a wire snap on there because I like the round bend. I think that lets the spoon work a little more instead of the cross locks, so that got a little really sharp bend at the end.
Right.
It kind of hampers it a little bit. But I just like the lightness of the wire snaps, and I run a really small one. It's probably only a 30-pounder or something.
It's all you need. Everybody listening, it's all you need. Just trust us. I mean, try it. I mean, I know you're catching fish now, but you think you'd be amazed at how many more you'll catch.
Well, that's it. I tell everybody, everything catches fish. It's how long do you want to be out there to catch your fish?
Broken clock fishing?
It's all these little things add up to, if you're fishing against your buddy and you want to get your butt kicked, well, yeah, run the great big swivels and do all that you want to do. But if you want to be consistent through all the different conditions, and that's how we designed our spoons to work in as many conditions as possible. There might be a certain condition where something works better than what we have, but over the long haul, our stuff's going to produce consistently through every condition is our goal.
And
as a company.
we're into telling some guys the behind the scenes stuff here, but we're not going to give away any of the trade secrets. And like I said when we kind of talked here a few minutes ago, is you taught me an insane amount about the spoon design, and we aren't going to tell people all that. That's not their business. We just know that you better have some juniors and some minis out there. But the terminal tackle thing is an absolute just no brainer. And while you've taught me about that spoon stuff, I'm going to tell you I taught you a little bit about rattle spoons. I mean, can I go there? I mean, can we tell this story?
If we must, I guess.
So
bring up nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody at home, here's the deal. Chip is basically like, hey, now we got this walleye stuff going. He sees me out ice fishing. I'm on the ice team. I run an ice fishing guide service, and we're using all this stuff and all this homemade stuff. And he says he made the mistake of saying, well, maybe we should do an ice lure. That would be great. Which I say you say that's a horror, but it's really not because it's been so successful. But what people don't realize, again, and this is a huge testament to you, most companies, and I could say almost probably say all companies would have, and I know we even tested your limits on this one because we were damn near 4 years from start to finish in development. A lot of because of shitty ice. But the reality is the lure that's out now called the Rattle Streak is a rattle spoon that's primarily designed for ice fishing. But the reality is it works really good in open water, cold water conditions. I know guys that are actually perch fishing with it in the summertime, trying to get a little bit better size fish. But we went to work on this thing, and I mean, God, what a nightmare that was. I mean, it was
a long time in process, and but I mean, you got to go through all those steps and through all the rigors to get, and we went through talking to you. You went through everything that was consistently producing fish for you. And we looked at everything and tried to figure out why things produce and what what's going on. And I mean, the big thing was the sound of the rattle. You had to get the right rattle. I think was one of our biggest problems was finding the right rattle that.
And again, I'm not going to give away too many specifics exactly, but the long and the short of it, guys, is I glued in 20 different rattles. I mean, I'm talking buying everything I could find to, taking them out of other lures and just trying to see, because there's a lot with that frequency and pitch. And the long and the short of it is a guy in the industry that I know that makes custom things. I mean, this is a truly custom rattle that you had to have custom made. And it absolutely was the difference between when we were out fishing. And I'm going to throw a couple of your guys without naming names under the bus when we were prototyping this. And they're like, oh yeah, it works. And they had the other rattles. And I mean, the rattle, I say the new rattle, but the current rattle in that, and the only one that's been on the market, that thing outfishes the other rattles, I would say 10 to 1 easily.
Yep, that's part of the long process. You got to get things right before you put it on the market. At least for us, I mean, I'm putting my name on it. That's the challenge to me. I mean, anybody can go out and make lures and sell them. That's the easy part. But to make stuff that consistently catch fish, that's the challenging part for me, and which keeps me coming back and gets me excited. Trying to develop something that is going to work in as many conditions for as many people, because everybody has a little bit different style. But consistently produces fish. And
if you remember when we went out, I'm going to roll you on this one. So just simmer down for a second. But
unfortunately, I remember.
Yeah, so everybody at home, here's the deal. We went out on Erie, and Chip was fishing in one of my shacks, and we're out. One of my good friends is probably the best ice fisherman I've ever been around. I mean, if he can't catch them, they ain't there. And he's catching them good. I'm catching them pretty good. And Chip's kind of struggling over there. Well, again, this is the part that people don't realize, that it sucks testing things out. It sucks because when you can catch them doing something else. And again, a little bit backing up the background on this, I told you this, and I know you trust me. We worked very close together for a long time. That the 1/4 ounce size was just flat out working, and we couldn't get the 3/8, or I didn't feel that the 3/8 caught him as well. Now, again, taking into consideration the size, meaning when current, or just even flat out that something was different on the flopping around. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And you were out there and you were trying the 3/8, and it was glow yellowtail. I can remember. I don't remember breakfast or even an hour ago, but it was glow yellowtail. And you had those down there, and you're like, yeah, I got like 2 fish, and I'm just jacking them over there. You even were yelling over, I remember, like, what's all that noise splashing? I'm like, dude, I'm 2 at a time, 2 at a time. And we went back, and a guy who runs, stuff for me and is one of your pro staff guys, he did some tooling on that for us. And I want to say we did like 4 changes to just, I mean, when you say tweak, the problem is people don't realize that the problems with it is you're getting these things painted. We were using different types of hooks, sizes of hooks, and split rings just to know which one was which. So when we were in the testing, which one catches them and which one doesn't. I mean, that's kind of a problem that people don't think about because they all look the same if you throw them on the floor.
Try to keep them all straight and which one is which. And I mean, they're very subtle changes, and that's what people don't realize when you put it in the water. Little changes in the shape or weight change the action so much.
Yeah, and with that quarter and the quarter and 3/8, the quarter has always been good out of the gate. Then the 3/8 was good, and now the half is, when you fished with me last year at the islands, the half was the moneymaker, and just because of current and the way that things were swimming. But people don't realize that. I mean, I could not visually tell the difference in the tooling. It was so minor on a lead spoon. I mean, this is not, we're not trolling this thing on Slack or something. I mean, just tiny. And it's amazing the difference. I think that's one of the things with the ride I've been on with you is learning it, how the minute differences. And that's why certain companies just have stuff that catches some fish, but they don't have that reputation that you do. And it's because of that time they put in.
Yeah, and I've talked to guys that just go and, they'll make a tool and run it. I'm like, you didn't test fish it, you don't do this. Why do you have such a great big ass hook on there? They're going like, oh, I had to slow the action down. I'm like, didn't you prototype and you run through all that stuff? No. Like, I don't know how you put stuff on the market without testing it and see if it catches fish. I mean, like on the junior streak, I think I thought my die maker was going to kill me. I changed that 10 times before I was happy with the action. And my die makers are old Harley dudes, and that dude kept looking at me. That little bit of change, I'd take the punch out and he'd grind a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's run it through there. I'm like, no, this is what I want, certain little bend. And I finally got it to where I was happy and did everything after 10 changes. Accused me of being pickier than my dad.
Or some guy that can tell the difference who painted pink panties.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes
I
it
had
doesn't
those guys out fishing right after that when we first put them on the market. And we were catching them 5 at a freaking time. We couldn't keep the lures in the water. And they're all Harley guys. He cracked the beer up and he set the beer down. And he never got back to his beer. I kept handing him freaking rods. Pretty soon he turned around and he says, hey, this is BS. He says, I ain't had a chance to drink my beer. I said, that's what we do at the picnic table while we're cleaning fish.
Well, and
so that's why we changed the die so much. Now this,
and that's
freaking works.
That's a testament to you and shows why you've been along all these garage operations that come or go, or guys that copy or paint these stock things that are out there. I mean, the reality is a big company can't roll with the punches like you do. They're not going to have, custom colors for a Fish USA. They're going to, like Rattle. I mean, I like Rattle stuff or whatever, but they put out X number of colors. They're not going to have a color that's just for Lake Huron or the Western Basin of Lake Erie. It doesn't make sense. But that's really, I think, a big advantage. You're like a small big company or a big small company, depending on the day. You're able to swing with the punches here.
More of a custom house, because we can roll with the punches. And like I say, each region has different colors or colors that they promote. Different stores, they got all their buddies. They're all running certain colors, and this gets hot or something. So, we're able to jump and get them what they need within a week. Where the big companies can't do that. They might run that one color once or twice a year.
Right.
And they're out. Where, we're painting every week to orders and keeping on what's hot and what's going.
Well, normally I would tell you I look forward to hearing what's going on or what's coming, but we can't tell anybody. But there's some new things in the works with Silver Streak besides just colors, and we'll keep it at that. But there's always new things and innovation going, and I think that's what makes Silver Streak and why I like working with you guys and use your stuff so much, because the reality is there's a lot of guys that use stuff, and then there's a lot of guys that say they're sponsored by a company, but when push comes to shove, whether I'm fishing for a tournament or, in reality just on a guide trip, I got to put in the water what works, and most of the time, it's a Silver Streak if I'm fishing a spinner or a crankbait or a custom painted crankbait or a harness, what have you. So even in the blade baits now. So you've really got a pretty diverse lineup compared to even 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, we keep tinkering with more things. These pro staff guys, they keep giving me new ideas, and I open my mouth and before I think about it.
And we're going to keep it at that.
Now I end up doing something else.
We'll leave you with this. There may be something coming down the pipe. It may take a couple years because we don't have it completely dialed in, but we're always working on stuff. It's like in my ice fishing things, we were working in July on that, and there's some new stuff coming with that too. Of course, this year we don't have as much ice to get it out there, but always working and developing, and that's what I think puts you guys on top and why I look forward to working with you guys and doing all the stuff as always.
Yep, well, conditions are always changing, so we're always trying to stay on top of things. The lakes change, the weather changes, and new things become available to us, so we can change paints or different things. So, it's always ever evolving. So we try to stay on the top of things.
Well, Chip, I really want to thank you for giving us your time and opening up with stuff. And we look forward to doing this again. Everybody at home, make sure you check out Bigwater Fishing. We're pretty much on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anything Bigwater Fishing, that is us. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, catch some fish.